Hello and welcome back to Two Birds, One Stone, Backyard Gardening and Living. Today we're going to talk about your impulse buy, the blueberry plant that you bought at Walmart or Costco or Home Depot, and now you don't know what to do with it. We're going to give you the lazy gardener's solution to blueberries. They're actually harder than you thought. Now what? I didn't realize it was going to be so hard. But we'll do it the easy way. Okay, gardeners, I don't want to waste your time. First, you're going to see a quick overview of my whole process. If this process interests you, stick around, and I will go into detail on each step as we go. You want to keep your blueberry alive in the easiest manner possible. Vámonos, let's go. Step 1, weed your planting location. I'm using a flamer. You could use a mower or a whacker. Weed the area you want to plant. Step 2, spread a couple of handfuls of pelletized sulfur over your planting area. Step 3, thickly sheet mulch with cardboard, and then a little bit more pelletized sulfur. Step number 4, sphagnum peat moss. One big bag for one plant. Step number 5, plant your blueberry right into the sphagnum peat moss. Step number 6, the 3 Ds. Prune off all dead, damaged, or dying branches. Step number 7, mulch, mulch, mulch with wood chips. Step number 8, mulch some more. Mulch, 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 mulch. This is cedar, western red cedar. Mulch, 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 mulch. Step number 9, lightly fertilize. Here I'm using fertilizer, a slow release fertilizer for acid-loving plants like rhododendrons and, of course, blueberries. Slow release is key. I'm using a lot of mulch. I want to get that nitrogen availability to the plant. Step number 10, watering in our young blueberry plant, giving it a nice drink. Okay, now that you've seen the quick overview, I'm going to ask you to stick around. Let's get a little more in-depth about blueberries. The first thing I want you to do is ask yourself, where do blueberries grow naturally? I can tell you, high-bush blueberries originally came from the New Jersey area of the United States, eastern United States, peat bogs, where the soil is very, very, very acidic. In order to grow blueberries successfully, you need to replicate their environment where they originated. They need acidic soil in order to uptake iron and other minerals from the soil. Don't be intimidated. We're not going to get into too much scientific stuff, but bear with me as I read something to you verbatim from earthsciencegrowing.com. Generally speaking, soils in the United States are moderately acidic in the eastern and southeastern portions of the U.S. and the Pacific Northwest, which includes the western portions of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Rainfall is greater in these areas of the country, and over time, rain leaches away the alkaline elements in the soil, creating a more acidic soil. Your blueberry plants need a soil with a pH level of 4.3 to 5.5. That's quite acidic. If you've taken a pH test on your soil, you're ahead of the game. I'm going to assume you haven't. So look around. Are your neighbors planting blueberries? Are blueberries known to grow in your area? Or do you have a more alkaline, high desert type soil? If you are in an area that has alkaline soil, fret not. You can still have blueberries, but you'll have to have them in a container or get really serious like they do in Central California, where they have a huge blueberry crop nowadays, but they use sulfuric acid in the water and in the soil. You could start researching using sulfuric acid, or you could go the easy route and just plant in a very ericaceous peat-based potting soil mix and stick to having your blueberry in a container. You'll have to also be cognizant of the type of water you're using for irrigation. If you're in an area where the soil is basic, you probably have basic water, or better known as hard water as well. So if you have your blueberries in a pot, you might want to look into a rain barrel or actually using distilled water to keep those blueberries from becoming too basic over time. And maybe you haven't gotten a pH test. It's a good idea to get a pH test for blueberries and other plants in your garden. But let's say you haven't gotten around to that yet. Fear not, I'm not going to make you get a pH test. I think it's a safe bet that your soil is too alkaline. All right, let's get to step number 1 and talk about weeding. We'll go through the whole process, and at the end, I'll give you one last secret about growing blueberries for the extremely, extremely lazy gardener. I would be remiss if I didn't mention you should plant your blueberry in full sun. The more sun you get, the more berry production, the better tasting berries, and the healthier the plant.
If you guys don't have a torch, that's okay. You can get we just want to make the weeds suffer so that when they're covered by the cardboard, they're not thriving. And so the cardboard, I found eventually, it breaks down fairly quickly in the soil. So the burning of the weeds obviously doesn't kill them. The roots are underground, but it definitely hurts them enough so that when the cardboard goes over them, it stops it from coming through as vigorously. Definitely not a perfect solution, and you got to be careful with fire. I'm very casual with it because the nature of my profession, I'm a wildland firefighter. So, all right, we'll keep going. All right, you guys, this is a fast-acting sulfur. I'll put a link to it in the description, but you can also find it at Home Depot, maybe even Walmart, probably not, but you can online, Home Depot and other gardening stores. It's just sulfur. So I believe you can use this in organic type gardening. This is just like that. Pelletized sulfur. All right. It even has blueberries on it. Great for blueberries. Turns your hydrangea blue. So this is where all the master gardeners and the soil scientists and everybody that is more scientific than I am are going to laugh at me and scoff at me. I know that this soil needs to become more acidic. You need to lower its pH. I'm not going to measure this that much. I know that it takes a long time. It takes at least a couple months for this to actually start having an effect, and your soil actually has to be above 50 degrees because the bacteria aren't active unless the soil is above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So when I plant these, the roots aren't even going to touch this soil, maybe not even this year, maybe next year into the next year. But I want to prepare this soil so that it's ready for when those roots actually eventually do reach down into the soil and it's nice and acidic. And I want to go more on the acidic end than I do on the, so I'm going to use more than, I'm just going to use quite a bit of this stuff. And I'm going to just spread it all in here and then we'll go from there. I'm going to do a voiceover too, so if I mess up what I'm saying right now, you won't even hear about it. I'm just going to take one handful. Oh my gosh. Way too much, they said. Way too much. Now the next step. We'll go like that. And go like that. And actually, I'm going to put some more.
I found I could make the pelletized sulfur stick a little better onto the cardboard by wetting the cardboard down. And also I decided to take a little bit of the tape off. The tape falls off later if you're too lazy to do it now and you just pick it up off the ground, but better to get it done now, I guess. Now I'm really going to cover the area with some more cardboard, making it even harder for those weeds to try to come up. They do try to come up, even if you put a ton of cardboard on, but the more the better in this case. Also, I'll do another layer of sulfur.
All right, how are we doing? So we've got sulfur below the cardboard, sulfur in between the cardboard, and sulfur above the cardboard. I think that's enough sulfur for right now. I might mix a tiny bit in with the peat on top. But here's our next step, peat moss.
Sphagnum peat moss has a pH of 4.3 to about 5.5 depending on where it comes from.
This bag is about 3/4 full. I'm gonna use it all. You could just go ahead and use, I would plan on almost 1 bag per plant if you want to be safe. I'll put that little fire out too. This is actually rainwater, so it comes down either on the acid side or neutral, distilled water, so it's perfect for blueberries. A lot of people have trouble because their tap water is basic, so they're just slowly killing their blueberries as they water them.
I happen to have a big bag of perlite laying around. This is not a necessary step, but I think it would help the drainage a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add perlite because I have it on hand. You don't need it. Peat moss works just fine on its own.
So far, so good. All right, here we got our Blue Jay, I believe it's called. Blue Jay. Probably should soak its roots. I'm just gonna dig in. A little dry. Give it a good watering. See, the original soil was potted and has tons of bark in it. It looks like a bark-based potting mix, which makes sense. That's what we're gonna give it to. Stand by one. All right, these guys.
Now I'm going to work on the 3 Ds, the dead, dying, and damaged branches. It's okay to prune your little blueberry plant a little bit. You definitely don't want flower buds on your plant the first year. You want it to concentrate on root and vegetative growth.
A little bit more sulfur. All right, that's it with the sulfur. It's just a mixture of chips. It has some that I know is Doug fir, and then some kind of unknown stuff. Looks like it's all evergreen though. Yeah, conifer. I'm just gonna start going around it. I'm gonna put this whole thing on it, but I'm gonna be real careful around this edge.
Mulch, 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 mulch. Mulch, 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 mulch. Mulch your blueberries. Mulch, 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 mulch.
As you can see, guys, I'm not gonna mess around with the mulch. It's all about the mulching. So check out my, there's another video I have just about what kind of mulch you should use. I'll put the link up here if I'm capable of doing that on YouTube. We'll see. It's a good time too to say, you know, it's going to be an amazing year for blueberries for me personally, because these have been in the ground, some of them coming up on their 3rd season with me. So I'm expecting a lot of growth. I can feel the roots are solid. You know, I'm a pruning nut, so I prune the heck out of them. I think this year I'm going to get a lot of vegetative growth and also a lot of berries on some small plants. But I'm hoping for growth this year and new canes. New canes poking up is what I'm going after. And that's what, you know, that's the longevity of your blueberry too. Those new canes coming up, those are what young new canes produce. Much better, higher quality, bigger, fatter, juicier fruit. All right, so now you can get this stuff at any feed lot or any kind of feed supply store. This happens to be cedar. And again, I encourage you to check out my mulching video because I talk about what might be a gardening myth and that cedar is bad for mulching many different plants. But I think it's a common myth from the last time I said the internet research that I've done. But you know, the internet's so full of crap that it's hard to find out what's true. But one hopes that they're pretty good at finding out what's true. And from what I understand, cedar is okay for blueberries and most other mulching needs. It might be another type of cedar. This happens to be western red cedar. Here, Zone 8B, Olympic Peninsula, Washington State. Okay, final step, you guys. I hate to admit it. I haven't admitted it to this point, but I'm not 100% organic here at Two Birds, One Stone Backyard Gardening. I believe in organic gardening, but I just don't have the time and money for that. Bad excuse, I know. But tell me what you think about, using a little bit of non-organic fertilizer. It's just the price. And, at least I still know what's going into these plants. There's no spraying going on or anything of that. It is a little bit of a high nitrogen, slow release, rhododendron and evergreen and azalea food. I wonder if it mentions blueberries on the back. I'll put a link to an organic choice in the description below. And so if you want to be organic, you can, but it's just a little pricey for me. This is a lot cheaper. That's okay. Planting blueberries, they say you don't need fertilizer, but I don't have time for that. I want these things to grow, so and the amount of mulch I put on is incredible. And so when mulch breaks down, it takes a little bit of nitrogen from the soil. So I'm just going to put a nice handful of this slow release, high nitrogen fertilizer on here. And blueberries have roots. They can't take up fertilizer individually on one side, so you have to put the fertilizer all the way around, because they can take from one side, but then they only hit one side. That's an unusual fact about blueberries, is that they need it all the way around. So I'm not putting too much on, just enough to give it a good start. All the way around. There we go. That's it. I've got room for more impulse buys, 1, 2. And then I think I'm running out of room for blueberries. I'll find more room. We're expecting rain as well, so I'm not too worried about watering it. I will give it a little drink right now. I'll go give it one more.
Blueberries require you to keep them moist. Moist, dry out, but moist. You got to keep up on the watering of your blueberry plants. Unfortunately, you got to water them. Water them and make sure you check on them.
Consider subscribing to my channel, as I'll give you updates on how this planting went, and the other plantings where I took a little bit more time and kind of did it more traditionally, which is time. Taking your time to get that sulfur in before you put the blueberries in, so that you have a good acidic base to work with. But I think I'm in an area of the country, an area of the world, where I can do this. A slight pH adjustment, or a point and a half on the pH scale, and you can do it with sulfur fairly easy.
Okay, I promised a trick for the extremely lazy gardener. Just buy a bag of peat moss and some slow release fertilizer and plant straight in that. Your blueberry will be alive. Peat moss, peat moss, peat moss.
I have a lot of cool projects. I'll give you updates on these blueberries. And look at this, you won't believe it. I'm digging a pond by hand. Subscribe, follow along, and give me ganas. Gracias por ver. Thanks for watching. Two birds, one stone, backyard gardening and living.